Good morning on this beautiful Sunday day, and welcome to the first lineup here on Voice Uganda Radio this morning. As always, I am your host, Miss Brenda, for Freedom at Hand, which is going to be very interesting today. So I am glad that you're all on board and eager to get started here. I will be with the Honorable Zoe Bakoko as well as Dorothy. Madam Dorothy will be joining us a little later on this morning in the program. So thank you so much for being a part of the program. I'm going to let Zoe come in and say good morning to you as well before I get started in the program. I also want to take this time to say Happy Father's Day to all of our fathers, wherever you may be in the free world or throughout Africa. Happy Father's Day. I hope this is a blessed day for you, and I hope that your families treat you well and honor you as the men that you are in our lives, the pillar of strength that keeps us going. We know behind every good man there's a good woman, but there has to be a good man there first before there can be a good woman. So thank you so much for all you give to us and all the ways in which you make the family strong and us strong as the women behind you as well. Zoe, come on in and say good morning to our listeners.
Good morning, our listeners. Every Sunday morning you wake up and you are so very grateful that we have this program on Voice of Uganda Radio. And we learn from you, and we are just very grateful that you tune in and that you ask questions, that you challenge us, we challenge you. And that's the only way we can build a new Uganda. And so this morning, let me take this opportunity to honor and remember my father. Because without my father, I would never have been on this radio, and I would never have been where I am. I just honor that guy, that he chose education for me, and he realized the importance of the girl child. And so all the fathers join my dad today, even those who are there alive, those who are gone, like my father, they are never forgotten. And on this very special day for fathers, enjoy the fatherhood, because that is a very special responsibility and opportunity. And if you can always hold your daughter or your son's hand and make them look up to you so that they understand the importance of that love you have and how you want to secure them and keep them safe. So happy Father's Day, all of you, all over the world, and particularly to the Ugandans. And we look forward to celebrating this soon in the new Uganda. Good morning, everybody.
Yes, yes. You know, we had the opportunity to be in Washington, D.C. together this week, and what an opportunity that was. I have to tell you, Zoe, you know, we're not always able to talk to the Ugandan people the way we want to and the way we want to share things with them. Not only those in Uganda, but those in the diaspora. But let me tell you, my fellow Ugandans, there is not a day, a month, or week that goes by that we're not in touch with people in D.C., in touch with other people that are connecting us and moving us forward in a great way. When we talk about the new Uganda, we say that because that's the way we want you to see Uganda. Because that is the picture of Uganda that we have already taken into our hearts and into our minds, and that is the new Uganda that we fight and move forward towards. That is what we put in the hearts and the minds of people who are in Washington, D.C. and in other avenues to come on board and help us. We've got more strong Americans coming on daily who are becoming a part of the growing movement forward for freedom for the Ugandan people, and that warms my heart in such a great way. The power of the American people that are starting to get on board and make their presence known in a private and a quiet way, but that really understand and know that we've got to start joining hands in hands with our fellow Ugandan sisters and brothers, because we are the privileged ones that it may have been our ancestors from Africa that came over on those slave ships that gave us the opportunities that we have today. Maybe that was the purpose and the reason that we were brought into this country, and we understand that and we recognize and we realize that. And as a part of that, we are starting to join hands and join forces with the Ugandan people to bring about a new Uganda. Zoe, just a comment real quick, and we'll get started with this morning program here on Freedom at Hand. But how did you feel about the trip there in Washington and the fact that we have more Americans that are starting to make their voices heard for the Ugandan people?
Humbled. I felt humbled because the amount of support, the immense amount of support, the fact that they feel for Uganda and for Ugandans, that is the thing which gave me peace in my heart, knowing that we are on a journey and that this journey is going to come to a fruitful end, and that soon we shall have a new Uganda, and we'll have it. And I'm just so blessed to be a part of this journey, Miss Brenda. And I know this.
We were numb. We just numb when we left. It was incredible. You almost wish we could put it on the radio and air it so everybody could feel the energy that we felt from that.
I believe they have. I believe they have, from just the spirit, the inspiration, and the fact that we are not alone, because we Ugandans sometimes, or if people from Africa, when we see no hope, we think that, but why has the West abandoned us? Why are they not feeling what we are feeling? But from this week's experience and the experiences I have had so far, I know that they do feel for us, and they just want us to hold our hands together, whether we're in the diaspora or on the continent. And that's the only way we will move forward. And so when you see things happening in the continent and back home in Uganda, and then you see what's happening in the diaspora, you just like, oh my God. And yesterday I had a meeting, Miss Brenda, with a very special person. And this person was telling me, because we were discussing issues about the new Uganda and what will happen in the continent and what is going to happen in the Caribbean. Oh my God, I am just thrilled to see that things are weaving themselves together, and God is merciful. We can only continue because we are faithful people and we have hope. And we will march into our new Uganda, holding our hands and celebrating. Happy Father's Day.
I know. But anyway, so, leading off from that, let me just say this. We have a lot of areas we're going to cover today, because the new taxes that have come out and hitting the Ugandan people, as well as the things going on with Sam Kutesa. We got a lot of the freedom struggle there that's going on with the military, the intelligence, and the UPDF, that people are fleeing now to find groups within Uganda that are standing for the same cause that they are and moving the country forward. Let me say this before we go into some of that stuff. I noticed that the president is really big on this national ID card thing for the voters. I think the victory that we had there with Brenda, I think has flared up some of these things with him, that he's going full force, it seems, Zoe, on this national ID thing, on which we know that he's going to be giving those voter ID cards to people who are not even Ugandans, people who don't even deserve the right to vote in the election for who should run the country. These type of things tell me that we have really struck a nerve with him. Because one of the things he has to understand and know, that we know that he cannot be voted in. A vote can never happen to bring him back in office and to bring him in power, because it will not be the same, on the same caliber as the victory was there for Brenda Nabakenya, because we know that the Ugandan people voted for her. We know that the people in her area and in her constituent, those were the people that stood there, that voted, that remained faithful and stood there until those votes were counted. The way that he wants to come into play and make us think that the same thing can happen for him is by now bringing this national ID thing back up and making it a big part of, him running for president again. But we're not voting him in, so he can do whatever he needs to do, because the vote is not going to be there. That's not the way that this regime needs to move forward. comment on that for me, if you will, Zoe, because I know we think on the same page. Go ahead.
Brenda, the funniest part of it was I saw the president scratching his head and saying, I want electronic voting. Electronic voting in Uganda.
I know.
How are you going to have when you have failed even to get a real voters registration and a real voters, how can you talk about electronic voting in Uganda when everybody does not even have the opportunity to do that? And how are you going to do this? People are still guiding the elderly, the blind, and others to vote. And so when he spoke about that, I'm like, this guy, he always lives in a fantasy world. He is looking for ways to make it so difficult for people to vote. They have failed to fix the problem of the ID card. Mere agreements between the opposition and the NRM party to be able to fix the problem, the constitutional problems first. He has denied that. And now they brought this ID project has been there for over 10 years. I was the one who thought that NSSF could have done an ID project as a private project, and it would not be under the control of government. It would be their project. Yes. And so this guy, because he wants to control everything, they moved that thing from under the Ministry of Gender, which is actually the ministry which handles youth, children, elderly, women, and everybody. And instead of having this as an independent project, he refused. He moved it to Ministry of Internal Affairs so that he can control it. And so there he goes again. He wants electronic voting. He has denied people the reform of the Constitution. He removed the term limits. The term limits must come back.
Yes.
He has denied a lot of things that are happening. And the Electoral Commission must be independent for it to effectively function in a free and fair election. The people in the free world know that, but the people in Uganda don't, because everything must run by him, whether it is a village issue, whether it is a national issue, whether it is an international global issue. They must all run by him, and he must be the one
and
to veto it.
Zoe, in the new Uganda, there will never be that much power given to the chair again.
No.
You can never give that much power to a president, and in the new Uganda, that will not happen. You've got to spread it out amongst all of the leaders who've been chosen by their people.
Miss Brenda, power belongs to the people.
To the people.
That is why in this country, as we were having this meeting yesterday, somebody said, one of the people in the meeting said, no, we cannot have this in our country. We may have issues, but the issue of morality and accountability will just flare up. You cannot have a president who will control everything. All the power cannot be centralized. And I think that is totally wrong. This guy came with an agenda, and he has been pushing that agenda, and I'm just so sad for him, because he every day must come out with something and goes to blabber it in air. And he thinks every Ugandan is stupid. He has not fixed the old ones. People have been going around the country. By now, there should be a discussion between NRM and the opposition. Now he's jumped another gun, and he's talking about electronic voting. Who does this guy think we are? He thinks all Ugandans are foolish. They cannot understand. He's running out of tricks.
Yes. He's totally. And this is my thing, Zoe. If he thinks that he has the people inside Uganda to worry about, he has another thing coming, because the people he really need to worry about are the ones that are outside of Uganda, the ones that he can't touch and that he can't get to, that he can't torture, that he can't kill, that he can't abuse. He thinks that he can keep control of the country by keeping control of the people inside the country. I think his biggest fight is on the people outside of the country.
He is a sad person, and I'm just I pity him, because as a president who has been there in power for close to 30
years and has nothing to show for,
thinking about his legacy, what kind of legacy he's going to leave. If he had gone, maybe excuse me, about 15 years ago, people would be thinking he is actually a statesman. He lost it.
It's very interesting. I see him get this big rally behind him of all these roads he wants to fix and these new bridges he's going to build and all these things he's doing. And then he allocates the fact that monies can't go to other things because it's going to these projects. And then a year later, I'm reading some of his news, and you realize he stopped work on these bridges. He stopped work on these roads because, they've got to channel the money into other areas. I don't know how long he thinks that people are going to continue to stand behind him with those type of behaviors. If the President of the United States of America said that we're going to build new roads and we're going to build a new bridge in a certain area, the people will not stand by and let him 5 years later say, oh, we can't put the money into that project anymore because of we have to move the money around in these other projects. When you allocate money out to a project, that money is put in trust and in holding for that project to take place and to move forward. That money is not put there for later on for you to decide, now I've told the people this, they forgot. Sorry about that. I got knocked out of the air by mistake here, but I'm back on. But the thing I was saying is this: when you allocate money and you allocate funds out for projects, that money has to stay in a place for that project to move forward. You don't then change your mind and move money all around. Otherwise, what happens is what's happening to the sitting president of Uganda right now. You never get anything done. You never move the people forward, and you never get anything done. And the people are held hostage in a country in which is not moving them forward simply because you can't just do things that way. You just can't. So I'm just very interested in how he wants to move the country forward and how he wants to move things in the direction he needs to when these type of things are happening. It's very interesting to me, and it was like Zoe was saying, the people are on board, the people understand, the people know, and the people won't have this. You have to start answering to the people. You have to start telling the people and showing the people how you're working for them. Like Zoe was just saying, a lot of the promises that he made 10 years ago about electoral reform and how he was going to work in the favor of that, it continues to fall apart time and time again. Either you're allocating the money, allocating the funds, standing behind what you're doing, or you're not. But you can't continue to tell the people that you're working in a direction that is bettering the country when you continue to move monies and shift things around so that they don't work in behalf of the Ugandan people. Go ahead and comment on that, Zoe, because it's true. If you're allocating money for something and every time you turn around you're pulling the money out for something else, nothing ever gets done.
Yes, Miss Brenda. You know, this is 2014. Mm-hmm. He just lost a major battle in the election in Luero. It was a very rude awakening for him to see Luero slip through his hands after calling Nabkeng a little girl and calling the Lukwagos little dogs and saying, he ranted. You can imagine people were saying, you've been promising us this. You came to Luero, you fought the war for 5 years in Luero, you ate all our animals and food, you destroyed the entire Luero, you promised to rebuild it, you've been giving us air. Your promises have been nothing but air. You have been sending, when he realizes that people are putting too much pressure, and the so-called minister he has allocated without power for Luero begins to feel the heat from the people, he changes. He goes into a reshuffle and changes the minister so that the new minister starts all over again and people think this new one is going to be what? Well, probably doing better than the last one. It has gone on and on and on. And it's not any different with the projects.
Yes,
he knows that question. Listen, the question was asked in Luero. The question is being asked in every part of Uganda. The question has been going on in Kanungu. If you read it, people in Kanungu said, we have no time to meet with this president because he has been promising us the roads for so many years. We have issues to discuss. We're not discussing about Mbabazi or his relationship with the president or his sole candidacy. And so he has woken up rudely to realize that Ugandans now know that he's been lying to them and he's running out of tricks.
Exactly. And I'm not sure, but I think we have a call there. Caller, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Miss Brenda and Honorable Zoe.
Good morning. Introduce yourself and come on in.
Good morning. My name is Musana. I should as well be one of your hosts. I always the first one to call. Thank you so much for the program, and I wish well all our listeners. Happy Father's Day to you. And what a program we have. I have certain issues that I would like to talk about. First of all, you talked about the election reforms. Before I go there, in today's newspaper, the U.S. Embassy in Uganda has said that corruption in Uganda is up to Ugandans, that nothing foreigners can do to eliminate corruption in Uganda. But by the way, they will keep funding Ugandan government. So in a way, the ambassador is telling Ugandans, this government is up to you to change, because according to the newspaper, the U.S. government has talked to Museveni about corruption. Museveni's government acknowledges about corruption. We Ugandans acknowledge about corruption, but the foreigners cannot do anything about it. So we have a common ground here. We either rise up and overthrow this government, or we keep this government with its corrupt ways, and our lives will keep on going in misery. Now, you're talking about elections. Elections in Uganda 2016 is a foregone because Museveni has won this election hands down. Reason being is that right now Museveni understands that he cannot win elections the way he used, or he cannot rig elections the way he used, because right now massive people are voting against him. Remember, Uganda has had about between 6 to 8 by-elections, and all those elections have been won by the opposition except one, and that was for Gilbert Bukenya's election. Now, Museveni has issued voter ID cards, the so-called national ID cards. Those are the people who are going to be given a chance to vote. And I want you to understand, a lot of foreigners have got these cards already, and that's why you see Museveni stamping up, screaming about voter registration ID cards, and we need to go on electronic ID voting, system, because only those people with voter ID cards are going to be allowed to vote. Make no mistake about it. Voter ID cards have been distributed, but I want to ask any normal Ugandan on the street to see if they have seen any voter ID cards, or if they have any voter ID card in their possession. All those cards so far have been given to Rwandese, people in Tanzania, people in Sudan, and people from Zaire, and of course, those people who support NRM. So by Museveni being frantic and say he wants a voting system, electronic voting system, he has already won the election. The opposition will just be given few cards. Now, going back to what I was saying earlier about, what you guys were talking about, Sam Kutesa's victory. Now, Ugandan is this is the right time to rise up, because Uganda is in the eye of the storm ever. This is the only way that Uganda is now in the eyes of the storm. By that I mean, if we start demonstrating and this man Museveni does something stupid, Kutesa in the nation will feel the heat. That's what happened when people said uprising. The first people to resign, if you look at Algeria, if you look at Libya, if you look at Egypt, the first person to resign was the UN representative of those countries. We have a UN General Assembly president from Uganda. And ladies and gentlemen, fellow Ugandans, this is the time. Let's tighten our belt and go on the streets and get ready, because Federalist Alliance for Democracy and Development in Uganda is going to tell you how to do this very, very shortly or very, very soon. And the second point is that it is sad to hear that the hospital in Mubende district, patients had gone to use the outside toilet, we call them pit latrines, and patients fell in these latrines. It actually, just gave away, killing the patients.
Wow.
Killing the patients. And we have a president who believes that Uganda is so developed under his government. We have a president who still talks about boreholes to get water. Boreholes, mind you. This is the man who came in power, promising Ugandans to go back to the 18th century type of trade, where we use barter trade, where you give somebody beans and they give you cassava and they give you medicine, you give them coffee. This is the type of man, the ignorant man who thinks he's so smart, the ignorant man who thinks he's the only one man with a vision. Now, patients are dying in pit latrines. And lastly, I want our listeners to listen and understand this. Captain Lutwama was killed, was tortured, he was arrested on the presumption that he was trying to overthrow the government. His lawyers went to the army prison to see him. They were denied for over 5 days. And this man, Lutwama, from the information we obtained, he was electrocuted, he was tortured, and he died in custody. Now, after his death, the UPDF, which I call Uganda Personal Defense Forces, took the body to the family of the late Captain Lutwama, and they were instructed to immediately bury the body. According to the UPDF, they said that the man died of acute leukemia. Then they came back and they said, no, he died of acute pneumonia. But the family of Lutwama refused to bury the body immediately, and the UPDF sent soldiers to go and force the family to bury the dead. I want any Ugandan who think that Amin was worse than Museveni. I want anyone to come and tell us that Amin sent people or his army to go and force the burial. Museveni has done it twice publicly. He did it one on the guy called Black that was killed during Wembley, And black was not a thief, but he was tortured the same way and killed the same way. And Museveni sent his UPDF. Now Museveni is telling us that UPDF is going to take over government programs because the public or the NADS, publics are so corrupt. Museveni, give me a break. If you look at your UPDF, look at the junkyard, look at the ghost soldiers. Who introduced ghost soldiers in Ugandan politics? It was UPDF. And now you're telling us that UPDF is going to take over the system. That is why I call it Uganda Personal Defense Forces. Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you, and happy Father's Day to all our listeners.
Thank you so much, Musana. It's always a pleasure to have you on, and I know Zoe is probably itching over there to get in and say something, but let me just say this before we go forward. You know, the tricks of the old are in the past. There is a reason he blocks us and doesn't want this radio program aired in Uganda. There is a reason he keeps the Ugandan people at bay from hearing the things that are coming from the outside world. He may be able to do this for a short period of time, but the people will find a way to uprise and move past all of that. For a man who's been in power for almost 30 years and Uganda is in the state of where U.S. was in the 1800s is deplorable. This man has received billions and billions and billions of dollars from around the world for charitable or whatever to move the government forward. He has only used those monies to fund himself, to make himself more powerful, and he's forgotten about the people in which he serves. For people to fall in a latrine that way and die, and you're telling me that you're moving the country forward? I mean, these are the conversations that we're starting to have in Washington. For this man to think that the rest of the world is fooled by his tactics, he has another thing coming, because we have not, the things that are happening in Uganda do not fall on deaf ear. And we are still becoming the voice for the people inside of Uganda, making sure that these things get to the ears of the people that need to hear it, that helps us to move forward on behalf of the Ugandan people. I mean, Zoe, really, the tactics that this man is using are days of old. We're not that ignorant in the free world to believe that this is a way that Uganda is going to move forward.
Yes, Miss Brenda. Unfortunately, he is of the old school. He still thinks that people are ignorant and that his lies and his tricks can continue, to convince the people. Unfortunately, no. Even just to go by what Musana said, the UPDF, Museveni was professionalizing the UPDF, and that is by putting in ghost soldiers. That's making the UPDF professional. Aid more and more and more ghost soldiers so that we can steal more and more and more money, which is coming from these donors and foreigners who want to give us lots of money. How else are we going? If we say we have recruited 20,000 more people and we put them on the payroll, that is how we are going to do it. We say we have bought more equipment, then we can spend another so many millions of their money and dollars, and that goes into our stashed away in our banks in abroad in Channel Islands. And so this is how, when young men like Captain Lotuama ask those questions, then Museveni gets very livid, and he forgets this young man actually fought, his elder brother fought with Museveni in the Bush War. And those are the things which is making even Luero, the people in Luero and in Semuto, all over Uganda, very upset that their children were claimed by this war, senseless war of Museveni, that they lost all their property. A lot of life was lost. And the so-called time of peace now, when people just ask him this simple question of accountability, and he goes for you, arrests you, puts you in a military court, and then they beat up this young man and end up killing him. And so it is backwardness. It's at the same time a guy who feels so entitled and full of himself. And when he's questioned, he really becomes livid. And so that boy is our hero. That boy, even he has killed him, that boy will never rest in his grave until the new Uganda will be there. He thinks that by shutting up people like that young man, that captain, that he has silenced them and they will never talk. Now,
and these are the times you draw strength from these things. These are the things that make the people of Uganda rise up and move forward. Because for him to tell them that America and the free world cares nothing about you, we have to run our country, they care nothing about the corruption or whatever, these are the things he feeds into the mind of the Ugandan people. This is not what we know that is happening. And the information that we have is vital. And he knows it will change the hearts and the direction of the Ugandan people if they know that these things are out there. Like Musa and I was just saying, and you can comment on this, Zoe. Sam Kutesa being voted into UN Assembly as president gives us leverage like you would never believe. First of all, we did not want him there, and we fought on every avenue that didn't happen. We also made our voices heard, and we went on record to state that the Ugandan people did not stand behind Sam Kutesa's election as a UN Assembly president. Now, if the world moved forward, and if the UN moved forward in the favor of Sam Kutesa to put him in that position, now is a time that the eyes of the world is on Uganda. And this is not a time to be still, and this is not a time to lay down and think that we've been defeated. This is a time to rise up and to realize the power that the UN has given us by going ahead and putting him in that seat. Because when things happen in Uganda, we will make a loud noise, and trust me, you know this to be true, Zoe. America is listening to us on a level that is very, very, very high. And they know that these things are happening, and they're just waiting to see what the Ugandan people are going to do, especially in the diaspora, to get on board and to continue to move the fight forward. Sam Kutesa being put in this position gives us leverage to continue to make the voices of the American people heard in the eyes of the world. And it gives us a leverage to make people understand and know that anything that happens on his watch, we're going to make sure that the UN is held responsible as well as Uganda. Comment on that for me, if you will, Zoe.
Yes, Ms. Brenda, the UN is on trial.
They are on trial by the
UN
people.
is on trial, not only by Ugandan people, by everybody. People are now watching, both people within Africa, the real progressive people from all over Africa are ashamed that Kutesa was elected. And for example, we have people whom we know who are like, is this real? Why did they push so very hard? And so for me, I know this is not just an African problem alone. It is a global problem.
It's a global
And so, by the way, on Wednesday, there will also be a discussion in the afternoon about that on Voice of Uganda, Voice of America. And we will discuss it too on Voice of Uganda Radio on our Wednesday program this coming week. Yes. And so for Kutesa, he might be celebrating, but his celebration and his celebration is very short-lived. Even on the night he was elected by acclamation, when the media people were asking him the questions, it was not like in Uganda where he can bring he can call his boss Museveni and say,
nowhere to run and nowhere to hide.
Where are the police? Bring them here to come and tear gas these people. Come and tear gas these stupid little dogs and stuff. He was trapped. He was trapped in, and the questions were fired to him. He is sitting on pins. Kutesa is sitting on pins, and Museveni doesn't know he tied a rope around his neck.
Yes,
by bringing Kutesa and forcing Kutesa on people in the UN. Let him sit there. Every day, people are going to continue. The conversation is on until Kutesa will say, I can't do it anymore. Because they have particular, people didn't know what is happening in Uganda. They could ignore it. Now they brought it in New York.
And let me tell you, by putting Yeah,
Did they know what they were doing? They were so full of power that they just thought about Kutesa sitting there and going to manipulate the whole things that have been going on and clean their ass. But right now, it's going to be dirty, and they are going to play dirty. They wanted it. They must face the music.
Let me just say this, Zoe, and you can comment to this. Things that happen on Uganda's soil, the president has control. He can push the media out. He can arrest them. He can torture them so that they don't come into the country and bother them with what he's trying to do. But when you take a leader out of Uganda and you put him in the United States of America on the UN Assembly, there is nothing to protect you. There is no tear gas. There is no president. There's no UFPD. You stand before the people and you answer the questions. You answer the questions that are fired to you, and they will continue to ask those questions. Because let me tell you, the press is hungry for answers they've never been able to get because they've never been able to go into Uganda and get those things answered. But now they have to be answered. And he can't back down. There's nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. And you're right. The president has put a leash around his neck.
Sometimes we fight, but we don't know. God's hand works in very mysterious ways. Very, very unknown to man. Because these people think, Museveni and the Kutesas think that they can reach anywhere and do anything. Yes. Did people know that Kutesa's NHAS, Museveni was working through Kutesa to do contracts with the UN in all these war areas? That is why they were exporting the war, so that they could actually loot those countries of their mineral and natural resources. Nobody knew about it. And now all this corruption is coming up. It's like an alligator from the under deep sea rising with the stinking smell to the top. Yeah, it's like an alligator.
Yeah,
and so they like it, they don't like it, they asked for it, they will have to dance to the music, because in New York, Kutesa, you won't have Kaihura and his men coming to tear gas people. People will picket there, the media will ask you questions, even if the Senator Kerry with whom you took photos to portray him as somebody who also listened to you, even Ban Ki-moon, I think right now is not sleeping. I laughed yesterday. You know, some Ugandans called me from here and they were like, did you hear that Kutesa is now the president of the UN? I said, okay, what about that? He said that, the Ugandans, somebody from the mission came and was celebrating that Kutesa had taken Ban Ki-moon's job. Can you imagine? That was so laughable, that Kutesa would be the Secretary General of the UN when even just being as a president of just a unit, which is the General Assembly, has created so much storm. That is so laughable. And it might actually be the thing which is going to bring Uganda down, because he still has to answer those questions on his company doing contracts with the UN. Which is a conflict of interest. And I don't think the US is going to stand by, because these are the things which bring down honorable men from in Congress or Senate. It floors them down. People are not happy to listen to things like that in the US and in the free world.
Because let's comment on this, Zoe. He was taking pictures with Sun Moon. He was taking pictures with Senator Kerry. He was making it seem like they were all behind him and they were supporting him. When in turn, we know that those pictures were old pictures, that they were just flaunting out there on the Uganda media for people to say, oh, look at how the United States, oh, look at how the UN is embracing Kutesa. When indeed, all those pictures were from a year or more ago. Now, like you said, I guarantee you, they're losing sleep over this, and they're not going to allow him to rest, because the questions they were asking him, he was able to dodge them at every avenue. But now that he's sitting in a seat that is a hot seat with dynamite underneath it, he has to start answering the questions. Kerry wanted to revoke his visa to stop this from allowing this to happen. I think the greatest thing he did for the American people, the Ugandan people, those in the diaspora, and in the free world is not to do that. Because now Sam Kutesa is on trial for his own life as to the happenings and what has happened there in Uganda. He will not be able to flee the questions with Kerry. Kerry was harsh on him with the things he was severe, with the questions he asked and the things that he had to say. My fellow Ugandans, you needed to be there because I guarantee you there was no love in the room for this man.
No, there was no love.
He was like a piece of meat thrown into a piranha pot, and the piranhas were eating him alive.
The free world allows you actually to destroy yourself. Because when this petition was on change.org, people were signing, people were reading, and the evidence of corruption kept on coming in the media, different people writing. We had congressmen from here who supported this petition. We had people in UK who supported. They were thinking that like in the free world, the people like Kutesa would have a single iota of shame and consciousness and moral value within themselves and say, I don't think I can take this. But Kutesa being who he is, Museveni being who he is, and just thinking, looking so myopically in that little room of theirs where they always discuss their corruption and thinking that nobody, we are untouchable. Then the people said, continue flying, float, float, float. And now he's in New York. And in New York, trust me, the people do research. They are going to unearth all the dirt and corruption of the Uganda government. All these issues of like this young man, the UPDF, who has just been murdered in the military cells and the prison and buried hurriedly and not allowed to be seen by his family. All this is going to be unearthed, is coming. Everybody is now doing research, whether it's Human Rights Watch, whether it is who, everybody's eye globally is now on Uganda.
It is, and we need to keep that eye on Uganda.
People, Museveni and Kutesa thought they had really made a very big step to be the president of the UN General Assembly. They have just sat on pins, and those pins will bleed them until they are dry, and they will walk away. They refused to do the honorable thing at the right time, to withdraw Kutesa's Kutesa coming. Nomination. Yeah. They refused because they are so entitled. They don't see the real world. Now they have to play the games by the rules of the real world. Not by the rules in Uganda where they are there to tear gas people.
I know. I love that because what you're saying is absolutely right. In this country, when you have 100 people an hour signing a petition, 100 people an hour signing a petition to keep a person out of office, the press, the media, the world wants to know, why would you have 100 people an hour signing a petition? These things draw up curiosity in their minds. It takes them back to research, and they will research and they will understand why this was not meant to be. And you're right. For the first time, I think Uganda is being put on trial before the world. Now, we wanted them to be put on trial before the international criminal courts. And let's just say this might be the criminal courts for them, because they will be put on trial. And every opportunity that the press gets to ask him questions, he will not be able to run, because in that seat that he's been elected in, he has responsibility to the press for so much time. I don't know if it's a week or a month or whatever. And these questions will continue to come up, and they will continue to haunt him. And I'm very, very glad to see this on behalf of the Ugandan people, that this is happening. Because let's talk about this. Let's shift direction here for a minute, Zoe, if we can. You have people the Uganda Police Services. You have people in the intelligence services there in Uganda, and in the army at a whole, overwhelmingly starting to join the advancement for the freedom struggle. Overwhelmingly, you're starting to have people that are fleeing and starting to want to join the advancement of the freedom struggle here that's taking place. These are not people that are voting. All the signs that the Ugandan people are sending out to the world, those are the signs that we have to start to pay attention to, because that is not the sign of people who are wanting to vote this man in 2016 to rule a country. When you have the very people that are there to keep order and control starting to flee because they understand that the order and control that they're starting to keep over the Ugandan people, they themselves cannot sleep at night with the harm that they're bringing to the Ugandan people. Comment on just the police force and everything, and how they're starting to flee into another way of being.
Yes, Miss Brenda. I just want to say again that Uganda and the UN are on trial. If you remember the other meeting we had, people now know what's going on. And of course, in the other prior meeting we also had, people say, don't worry, Kutesa will get it, but he will wish he never pushed it. And so I think from that time, I kept on speaking on radio, but I knew they would give him the seat. And now it is hot, and he will have to have a padding on his back, a huge padding, cold padding, so that he cannot feel the heat on the chair. It's up to him. He chose it. Now he must have a roast, allow the roasting to take place. It's his business. He will have to handle it. On the issue of the police, the military, and defecting, Miss Brenda, why did Museveni militarize the police? Why did he put Kale Kaihura in the police? Why did he and his son Muhoozi decide to recruit special forces, whom then they posted and deployed in the police? Because the traditional national police was a very respectful police, neutral, and they knew their role as police. They knew that they were there to protect the people and the law. And they did not. They followed the law. They didn't listen to Museveni. They didn't vote for Museveni. When they were put in places to guard the ballot boxes and whatever, during the electoral process, these policemen would stand there. They didn't beat people. They didn't do nothing. And Museveni lost in some of these voting centers. And so Museveni got very angry. The only way for him to control the police, send them anywhere so that they can tear gas and beat people, was to militarize the police and bring military men like Kale Kaihura and put them in police. Because the police are not supposed to be military people.
Yes.
And trust me.
Well, they're there to keep law and order. Yeah. Yeah,
they're just there to keep law and order. They are not there to beat people. They are not there to tear gas people. And so Museveni putting these policemen, and making them army men or military people was to serve his purpose. But you have a lot of intelligent people, because the police never just recruited anybody. Police always recruited people who were educated, because these were people who were supposed to handle people, and make sure they would follow the law. And so the military in the police are the ones who are stealing. When you have police, ghost soldiers in police, the real police are the ones who have been sleeping in mortuaries. You have more than 5-6 families sleeping in one uniport. I mean, Miss Brenda, you have 5 couples. When will these couples ever know how to, to meet their conjugal obligations?
Yeah, I had the opportunity
in one little room 5 couples sleeping.
I had the opportunity to see that.
Down the family unit. Museveni and his wife, who pretend to be so very religious and who claim that they understand the family unit by saying we cannot have disgusting people like the homosexuals. If you are bundling up couples, families in one small room, more than 6 families in one, is that not dehumanizing the family?
Yeah,
the children in the village, even the people who have never gone to school, know that there must be one little hut only for the husband and the wife, and maybe for a baby who cannot understand what is going on in that house. But for the Musevenis, it's right to bring different families, 6 of them, and put them in one unit. And then you find fights between these soldiers and policemen. Are you surprised that there have been stories of policemen shooting their wives or their friends because accusing that the other is sleeping with the other? You put 5, 6 people in one small room, and the husband is never in the house, and these people can never meet. And so Museveni has been the biggest disgrace to our nation.
Yes, and
if you take it to the real family unit, they have been the biggest disgrace to our country. They have destroyed family unit. This is the same thing they did by pushing people in internally displaced camps in the north, where people, there was no privacy. Just like the police, he actually did his test by pushing policemen in these small unipods, 6 families with their children, all sleeping in one small unipod. And when he realized that it destroyed the family unit, then he started pushing families into internally displaced camps. And he created all this conflict so that people, the real moral values of the people just went up in the thin air. And he has been the biggest disgrace to our country, because he has destroyed the value system, and moral values have been turned upside down.
Yes, I'm gonna.
This man, he doesn't deserve to lead the country. And the only thing which makes me happy, we talk about this not in lamentation. We have to remind ourselves of what he has done and is still doing, so that we move to the next stage, which is the new Uganda, which is already in preparation, with a lot of hope, knowing that tomorrow all this will be a yesterday.
Yes. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and take a break here, just saying that I had the opportunity to visit and see some of those living quarters when I was visiting in Uganda, and I agree with a lot of what you're saying there. We're going to go ahead and take a break here. You're listening to Freedom at Hand with the Honorable Zoe Bakoko and Miss Brenda here on Voice Uganda Radio. We will be back in just a few minutes.
Kalino mulenzi wako tomu nawamika mwagala nnyo naye nga akatyoka nnyo kalabanga kayambo lwendabika era bammerwa kyalumu kanyabo kange nakagoba kafunyo wa kilasa kasingako naye akugoba yakuwa ekkubo laba karona gye kagenda kafunayo omusajja singoli akalabanga malayika bakola babiri ne bezimba ebyamukama tebigwayo kati tomuka muyitako nga kamukuba nfuufu wetobera n'omukazi ng'olowooza bisebo wamuyamba buyambi tobera n'omukazi ng'osuubira Tomu mazungira asanga karona n'omwagalwa wako yabura okwetuka nabakira wakasimu nakuba rona nze nkwewunya nani manyi nyabo wafuna nnyo oyo fala wekyazanga fere wa kibuga munange singanda ngompa time switi hati netwogera natamanya nti oli gwa switiza yali yakowa nnyo amuddamu essimu yange gireke tomalirako muliro abatalina byokukola mwesimye mwagaba n'obudde mwamala bwenjagala ali bize nnyo tomuletako kamanyiro kulabanga mistikolo ebyange nawe sori byagwawo n'omukazi ng'olowooza sebo wamuyamba buyambi tobeera n'omukazi ng'osuubira tiwamutuna butuyi ebyo by'omutereka ng'olowooza nti yakoma awo walimbe bulimbi emikisa gy'abakazi gy'omingi ekyo olina okukimanya tobeera n'omukazi ng'olowooza sebo wamuyamba buyambi tobeera n'omukazi ng'osuubira tiwamutuna butuyi ebyo by'omutereka ng'olowooza nti yakoma awo walimbe bulimbi emikisa gy'abakazi gy'omingi ekyo olina okukimanya abasajja kyennagamba mulina okumanya bino ekitonde kikazi kyasuka katonda yatuwa feva yatukola mu katiba kanjawulo bw'olaba ng'eyafedinga omulala mulaba ng'amatabuta emikisa gy'abakazi gyomingi tomulina okukiyiga eyanyobera mu sapatu omusango yesaze kakondo emikisa yayeyayiga ekyo olina okukimanya kanyabo ke wasibiranga mu nju okasanga ku biki ketaya emikisa gy'abakazi gyomingi ekyo olina okukimanya nabe yasibiranga mukene onyabo kati ennyama girisamwa emikisa gy'abakazi gyomingi ekyo olina okukimanya.
Thank you so much, and welcome back to Freedom at Hand here on Voice Uganda Radio with your host, Miss Brenda, and the Honorable Zoe Bakoko. When we took a break there, we were talking about the police force, and and Zoe went a little more into detail. And I had the opportunity to visit those barracks when I was there, and I was really very puzzled as to these are people that had what would be considered in the United States of America very good jobs. Mm-hmm. And for the way that they were treated in Uganda, I found that very, very interesting that was happening. Now, I say that to say this, Zoe. We cannot ignore the fact that these people are coming up missing and dying themselves simply because, number one, they want to flee and they don't want to be a part of what the government is doing to the Uganda people anymore. And number two is because anywhere your hands get dirty in this government, in killing, torturing, abusing other people, your turn is just right around the corner, because the more evidence you have on this government, the more the reason is that you are the next one in line to be, to die. And how do we explain that? I mean, because one of the things I tell Ugandans all the time, it may not be you today, but it will be you tomorrow. And the very torturing that you're doing to the individuals that you're torturing for this government, you're going to be in that hot seat someday yourself. So don't think you're excluded from this type of torture and treatment of the government because you're doing their dirty work. Because eventually you're going to be the same one in that seat and you're not going to understand. And it will be too late for you to flee away from that, to become a part of a movement of something greater for the Ugandan people, not at the torture hands of the people that are there to protect.
You're absolutely right. Museveni is a Stalin, and he's the kind of person who trusts nobody. Even the ones like Kutesas and the Kaihuras who are doing his dirty work today, tomorrow, when he finds someone else, he's going to discard them like rotten potatoes. So for him, it's either himself, his son, his wife, his brother. It's not about his hundreds and thousands of children, that he has produced out of wedlock. He has over 40 children. And so for him, it's just about those people. It's not about anybody else. He may treat Kutesa right because Kutesa's daughter is married to Museveni's son. And so they share grandchildren. And their wives were sisters. And so that may be the reason why he will kind of, but Kaihura is just another little dog he's using anyway. So eventually he will realize that he was just doing this and that he's just as much as a nobody as the people he was ordering to be tear gassed. And, where is Mayombo? If Kaihura can think about it, those were more loyal people to Museveni than Kaihura. Where are all these other people? So I think that he can go ahead.
I need you to back up for me 1 second. I have to understand something, and I know the American people are going to send me emails saying, what? Did you just say that Sam Kutesa's daughter is married to one of Museveni's sons?
Yeah, Muhoozi. The Museveni is he has many children, but the only child he puts in the public eye is his son Muhoozi and Kanerugaba, and his son is the one whom he wants. That is why Sejusa had to run. Is the boy when Sejusa says Museveni wants his son to succeed him. Actually, the daughter of Kutesa and Museveni is the wife who died, and she was a sister to Janet Museveni. That was the daughter. And that daughter is married to.
Hey, we're back, and thank you so much for staying tuned with us through some of our problems here. We had to check some things here in my studio. Hopefully I'm up and running well. We know that there are certain people that probably don't want me on the air, but we'll continue to work out the problems as they arise. Zoe, go ahead and finish with that briefly what you were sharing, and then we're going to go ahead and introduce Dorothy into the program. Go ahead.
Yes, you were asking me to explain to you and American people if it is true that Museveni's son, the only public one, who is Muhoozi, whom Museveni wants him to succeed him, is married to Kutesa's daughter. That is very true. They share grandchildren, and that is probably why Kutesa is hell-bent on funding Museveni's sole candidacy and prolonged presidency, because he wants to see a daughter who will become a first lady in Uganda. But unfortunately, that will not come to pass. And that is the reason Sejusa ran out. And that's the reason, there's now this breakdown in the country. People realized that Museveni wanted his son to succeed him, not anybody else. And so it is true. His son, Muhoozi, who is heading the special forces, presidential forces, is the one who is married to Kutesa's daughter. I attended that wedding. I know it.
Wow,
it's not like it's a speculation. It happened. Yeah.
Wow, very interesting. Let us go ahead and introduce Dorothy. And Dorothy, come on in and say good morning and join the conversation.
Good morning, Miss Brenda and the Honorable Zoe. I would like to say good morning, good evening, good afternoon to all our listeners, whenever you may be. Of course, the beloved Ugandans, wherever you are, we love you. Please wake up. It doesn't matter what time of the day or the night. The theme is wake up. So we love you, and I will turn it back to you, Miss Brenda.
Well, I'm going to go back to you for just a second here. I'm going to change course just for a second. The new taxes that just hit Uganda, that is going to tax those who really are the ones that are making less than $1 a day, because of some of the things that are being taxed or some of the things that are important and vital to just livelihood. They're not things that you can do without. Petrol, kerosene, sugar, things like that. Comment on how you think this is going to affect the Ugandans that are barely surviving right now.
Miss Brenda. we all know that people who used to eat 3 meals a day, they can't afford one. Okay? Right?
Yes, yes.
Now, if you increase, you can see that all the items that the taxes were increased, these are the things that a common Ugandan, poor Ugandan, they use daily. Okay? So, explain it to me. How are they going to survive? The prices are already too high. The inflation is up there. People cannot even get a penny with no jobs. Every single little, their business put on fire. If you don't support the movement, you can't have anything. Now, they taxed those things. For the poor farmer now is being taxed 2 times. Okay? If you grow your beans, you want to take a basket to the market so that you can be able to buy kilo of sugar or buy a liter of paraffin. Now they're going to tax you on that. So, I mean, the little instruments we use in the garden, everything is taxed heavily. They pick the stuff that the poor, Ugandans cannot live with, and they tax them heavily. Okay? Look at that 10% when you go to the bank. I mean, when you send money to Uganda, mobile money, what is this?
That's going to affect us in the dash.
It is one, yes. It is one thing to increase the tax year after year when there is no productivity, when there is no accountability. What are those monies using for? Yeah. Where has it go? When we don't have no hospitals, when we don't have no roads, when the doctors are not being paid, when the nurses are not being paid. Where do they go, Miss Brenda?
The most interesting one.
Somebody made a comment, Honorable Zoe. People made a comment, if you go on Observer, now you can't find the monitor. Why is the monitor not on? What is going on? People massacred in Luwelo like crazy. The boys were arrested, 6 are dead, 10 people are dead in Luwelo as we are speaking right now. Some newspapers, you cannot access them, what is going on. People have made a comment, Miss Brenda, that in Uganda it is easier to die. Because of this budget, it is just easy to die. We cannot cope anymore. And Mrs. Chiwanuka, Madam, you stand out there to announce this budget to the Ugandan people. What is it? What is it?
Yes, because
in that budget for the Ugandan.
Let me tell you, Chairman from Kotido has just resigned. If you read the news, he's a former member of parliament. We were in parliament together with him. I think it must have been 6th or 7th parliament. And he says, I cannot go and let my children to be begging anymore. He just came to a realization. And why? Because of what happened in Luwero. He just suddenly realized Museveni has given them this big hope. I'm going to pay Chairman LC Fives 5 million, or 1.5 million per month. He puts this big 2 million per month. He puts these big figures into their faces. The constituencies are so angry with the chairman of the local councils, whether it is chairman LC3 or chairman at the sub-county.
Yeah, and we have a caller coming in. Caller, come on and introduce yourself and come on in.
Hello, wonderful ladies. This is Chiwanuka Nsereko calling in from New York.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning to Honorable Zoe. Good morning, Madam Brenda, and a good morning to Dorothy. You have raised quite a number of issues. One of the issues that you started with when I was beginning to hear them was the discussion of Uganda, the police force. First of all, Uganda police is there only in name. It is actually a military outfit. When a police force is trained, it is trained as a service. In the case of Uganda, what we have today is a military outfit which is trained to defend if there is an attack. So when the Uganda police is deployed, they don't see the civilians of Uganda, the citizens of Uganda. They don't see them as colleagues. They see them as enemies. Hence, their outrageous, obnoxious, and murderous behavior towards Ugandans. For example, take today's case in Mukono. As we speak now, the mayor's garden in Mukono and the entire township of Mukono is flooded with these military men in military gear to allegedly create a setting area because Museveni is going to be visiting Mukono either tomorrow to launch a water tap. Okay. Now, these are some of the things. Yeah, he's going to be launching a water tap in a marketplace. But the opposition was supposed to have a rally at the mayor's garden. So they can't have the rally there because the president is coming to town tomorrow. So if people from the police service who actually take courses regarding the penal code were the ones involved in this process, they would not be behaving the way these soldiers we see in police uniform are behaving. The other disappointing factor that people do not know is that most of the equipment the Uganda police, that's Uganda police in quotes, is using are the same weapons that were being used by the apartheid regime to kill blacks in South Africa. What Museveni did, he went to the junkyard in South Africa and purchased all these vehicles and the leftover tear gas and brought it to Uganda. In a way, the Uganda regime, in some form, is an apartheid regime. It's a regime that is looking at other Ugandans as a different race who should not be speaking, who should be working in slave conditions, who should be given the bare minimum to survive, as the case was in George Orwell's Animal Farm. Because just imagine Museveni dupes the country that he has increased the salary, at least the salary of the teachers, by 15%. But then he flips over and increases the price of essential commodities, let's take for example sugar, by 50%, which means the salary which you have given somebody, which is an increase of 50%, is actually going further down in the negative by 35%. There is nothing that the budget has done for the people of Uganda but to rob them more and more. And I have often used the term criminal regime. And I think I need to stop here and maybe go back a little bit in history why I say this is a criminal regime. One, in 1985, the Museveni regime attacked all banks in southeastern Uganda, raided the coffers of those banks, private and public banks, and took the monies out. Allegedly, they were using them for the war. Now, when they got into Kampala, they never refunded any of this money to these banks, and some of the community banks actually collapsed as a result. Then you move forward. When they entered Kampala, they carried out a few activities. And those activities included, one, the currency reform, and the currency reform was geared at improving the economy. Some of the factors of the currency reform were okay, but the one thing that people didn't realize, when Museveni came to power, the Uganda shilling was 1,500 Uganda shillings to $1. So Museveni said, when we change the money, we knock off 2 zeros, which would have made we knock off 2 zeros and take off 30%, which would have brought the dollar to about 9 shillings. Museveni pushed the dollar up to $60, to 60 shillings. At that time, the central government was the only institution legally allowed to sell dollars to traders. So one wonders what happened to the 51 shillings that they were taking away from the civilians. It went to their own personal funding. They moved forward. Because of the war situation between July 1985 and January 1986, the Central Vehicle Registry in Uganda had a problem registering the vehicles that were coming into the country. However, most of these vehicles were being imported by businessmen, and some businesses were owned by people in the previous 2 governments, the Obote and the Rutwa government. The NRA carried out an operation which was called Operation Nagoya, and they captured approximately 49,000 vehicles. They parked some of them at Lugogo, some of them at Kororo Airstrip, took them and sold them privately and owned some of them and exported some of them to Congo. These were vehicles from private businessmen. But because they had not been registered, instead of telling them that register these vehicles, they just took them away. So this kind of robbing the public has been going on for long. And when you look at the budget, all it's geared at is robbing the public. You cannot tell me that a government that has just decided to spend $159 million on the war in southern Sudan can go ahead and tax essential commodities like a paraffin, which most Ugandans use to have light in their houses, because they use this in their kerosene lamps. So there is an intention to impoverish Ugandans furthermore and use these monies that they gather to hold the entire nation hostage. If you need medication, as we have seen, people who have HIV within the government circles, soldiers and the ministers, and if you want to receive proper treatment, or even those in the opposition, I know a few. If you want to receive proper treatment, you have to be beholden to Museveni, who will give you the money to be able to purchase the medicine that you need for HIV. There was only one area where I was supportive of Museveni, only one. It was his view on HIV/AIDS at the beginning. But the way he has used it for political gain, I can't even give him that credit anymore. So we are dealing with a criminal regime that is taxing people left, right, and the center so that they can maintain their expensive life, luxurious life that they are living in their own ways, where they go to hospitals in Germany. We have Sam Kutesa, whose son graduated recently in Spain, and he was able to rent or hire a plane, I understand it was a Boeing,
Wow.
get the whole village of his relatives, put it on the plane, fly them to Spain, put them on a yacht for a couple days to have a party for his graduating son. And guess what? His son graduated in oil management, and now I understand his son is obtaining shares within the oil companies that are digging up oil in Bunyoro. So you can see the chain of robbery that is circular, that is going on all the time. So when Honorable Zoe talks about this family thing, it's there. It's this idea of a ruling class. And when Museveni says that he's the king of kings, he means it. That's his goal. This is not going to be a Republican democracy. It's going to be a way that he wants it to be. So fellow Ugandans who are listening in, as you listen to these wonderful ladies, take a cue and follow what they are saying. We need a new Uganda where we will all equally partake on the shares that are provided to us. Uganda is beautifully endowed. Though it has been raped, ripped, and robbed, we can still rebuild it. We can still cancel Uganda and bring it back, where I will be able to sit down and talk to my sister Zoe, and talk to my sister Flomankole, and talk to everyone without prejudice, without malice aforethought, as we are saying in the NRM regime, which has decided to use excessive sectarianism to divide the country into smaller clannish groups so that we can stay divided. The new Uganda that we envision is a united Uganda where we will all be proud of our identities under one umbrella of a nation that we are proud of. This is our call, and this is why we ask you to always join us and be one with us so that we can push away this darkness and have light ascend upon us so that we can see a way for our country. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I appreciate you so much for providing a voice that speaks for the people of our nation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and you're always welcome on this program, and we always appreciate your input. I'm going to go to you, Zoe. Let me make this comment on it, and I want to go to you. You know, in the new Uganda, he's right. There can no longer be favoritism in groups as to how wealth is divided. All Ugandans are beneficiaries of what happens in Uganda. If oil is found, if great minerals and oils are found in the country, it belongs to the people of Uganda. It doesn't mean that it belongs to certain groups. We've got to get Uganda back to a position that it works for all the people, and we understand and know the middle class is where Uganda needs to grow. If we grow Uganda in the middle class sector, all of Uganda grows, because the majority of the people in Uganda right now who are living in less than $1 a day are considered those middle class citizens. We have to find a way to make the country affordable for those people to participate, to gain, and to live in their country. I mean, these people are entitled to the same greatness as Sam Kutessa's son. That sickens me to hear that you've got a family that would spend this much money on their family members when you have people in Uganda dying in the hospitals, falling in latrines and drowning and being killed, families that can only eat a meal a day, taxing the poor in order for him to continue to lavish these type of events on his family. And I'm going to make sure that the American media gets a hold of this and questions him on the behalf of how he could live in such luxury when the people of Uganda are living off less than $1 a day. Go ahead, Zoe, and comment on that if you would.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brenda. before I want to thank Lawrence for his elaborate explanation, and I always appreciate and learn a lot from his contribution. And just before that, I was actually talking about the chairman from Karamoja, who resigned his position. He's a political leader. You have military people defecting. You have police defecting. People saying enough is enough. I cannot take this anymore. And, so you have politicians who trusted Museveni, and they are defecting too. Because the guy said he put his resignation, and he said very clearly, I cannot continue begging for my children who are going without meals. Museveni flares this money and says all chairman LC5s are going to be paid 2 million shilling, Ugandan shillings. What is 2 million Ugandan shillings worth? And just as you have said, I want to tie this into the budget. He has increased the budget of the teachers. He has increased the budget he's making them happy. I have increased your budget, and now you are going to earn so much. And then he gives it to them with the right hand and takes it away with the left hand. And he pumps up the cost of everything. And the cost of living goes up hundreds and hundreds fold.
Yes.
People in the villages no longer use kerosene for lighting, Miss Brenda. People use pieces of wood. After you cook, you still have the fire at the end of the wood. That's what they use to try and get around in the house. If they can pull the grass from their house, they will light that, and that's what they use to light, so that they know where they are going to sleep. And that's how poor children end up being bitten by snakes, because people don't see what is in their house when it is dark. It's very disgraceful. It's very dehumanizing that Ugandan people can be reduced to that level. Uganda has a lot of resources, and you have just Lawrence has just given one example of how Ugandan taxpayers' money is spent. Because the Kutesas and the Musevens are privileged, they can hire all these big jets and bring all their relatives to Spain, and they want to control everything. Why do you think the Toro, the young king, was wrote in the papers that he is going to fast and pray? And Museveni got livid about that. He said that boy, can you imagine this? And he's supposed to be the caretaker of that king. That boy better shut up. And so the Toro people are saying, can you apologize to our king? He's 18 years and above, and so he's no longer a boy. And why is he reacting that way? He sees how the people of Toro are very poor. And now what is Museveni doing? He's militarizing the cultural leaders. He has Chimeza, I think somewhere in Kayunga, who is a military man, and he's now supposed to be a king. And that one is going to fight the Kabaka. He has just put a military man for the Bamba, who is now going to fight the Toro king. How can you militarize the cultural institutions which were supposed to be inheritance, and these were there years? Can you go to England, remove the queen, and just bring some other commoner and keep the queen there, go to another part of England and say, no, from now on, the queen and the king are no longer your queen and king, and so this military officer becomes your king? Where on earth is that done except in Uganda? And this young kid who was actually made a king after his father died mysteriously, when he was 3 years old. And Museveni was the one who claimed to be his protector. And now today he's angry because the young man is questioning the way he's doing things. And so for Uganda, we are in a state where people are not supposed to question anything. He's militarizing NADS, the agricultural extension. He's militarizing extension. He's militarizing cultural leaders. He's putting the military in the police. He's putting the military everywhere so that him and the Kutesas can send their children to have shares, to train as oil experts, come back and become and lead in the oil exploration. And when they start extracting it, and then they have shares. Then ordinary Ugandans, where are all the ordinary Ugandans who have been sitting on this oil in their villages? Where are they in this? He's taking away from them everything.
Yes, and you're absolutely right, because the oil, you're correct. It belongs to the people. It doesn't just belong to the elite. Dorothy, come in on that.
That's a resource. And I want to finalize with the Mukono, something that he's going to launch a water tap. He's going there because the opposition had planned an event there. He wants to stop that event from happening. And so Museveni, because he has the helicopter, he can go for 10 minutes to Mukono, and then the opposition event cannot happen because the police will sit there the whole day to beat any opposition who will do their business. And then he can hop to Western Uganda, where there's a wedding where he was supposed to meet with the Kiza Besigye. There was also another event somewhere which he was supposed to attend, and he wasn't going to. How can one man run all over the place and never delegate? What is wrong with this guy? For us in FUF, let me tell you, we know that in the new Uganda, our position is the army, the police, all these people who are being grossly mismanaged and misused also need to be liberated. And we know that they can perform their professional functions. We blame the Museveni regime for the gross misuse of both the army and the police. People who are called ghosts or are in ghost services must be seen as victims. That must be liberated. In the new Uganda, we will have no monopoly. And not even the Musevenis, they will lose all these things they think they have.
Everything. Zoe, Dorothy, come on in on the comment. On the question here at hand, because I know you had a couple of things to say from Lawrence's comments as well. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Ms. Brenda. As Mr. Sereko said, we are supposed to sit and beg, or you are supposed to be like a good pet where you behave well, then you get a treat. That's what it is all about. So, as I said before, if somebody tells you it is just easy to die, then you know what is at hand. These taxes, when people don't have anything, when the KCC and the Uganda Revenue Authority join hand to hunt people who don't pay taxes, but I don't know who leaders who haven't lived up to their promises to build infrastructures for people to get jobs, to build hospitals or renovate or put medications in there. I don't know for them what are they accounted for. Their job is to collect taxes until the poor Ugandan doesn't have a penny. So, Ms. Brenda, if you woke up and planted your beans, if you got 3 baskets and you didn't have salt, because this is the reality. Some people will not have salt waiting for the next season to harvest the little they have, take it to the market, and go buy salt for the next 3 months and paraffin. Now you cannot take those beans because if you take them, anyway, you're going to be taxed. You can imagine how much is that. It is nothing. When somebody tells you it is easier to die than live, or it is just the Ugandan people, when the man said, you little dogs, stupid little dogs, he meant it. Miss Brenda, people love their pets and treat them well here in America. The Ugandan people, the way they are being treated right now, you don't even treat your dog that way.
No, we don't, actually.
So that is the bottom line. What I'm going to say here, Sam Kutesa was based, and you see these few days how things have changed in Uganda. Honestly. So, for me, all what I can say that it is up to you, children of Uganda. It is up to you. It is up to us what we do. We can sit back and be treated the way we are treated, or we do what we are supposed to do. Because this is a responsibility, we can no longer sit and look up to somebody else. Because you see, and you know. And for me, I think this is a blessing in disguise because people have taken things for granted. In the civil rights movement, people stood up. They sacrificed. Some of them, they never lived, but they knew they had dreams. They stood up to their 2 legs with the determination and sacrifice, tear gas and beatings, deaths. They fought for what we enjoy right here in the United States today. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been. So, for the children of Uganda, I think what happens in the new Uganda depends on what we do and when we do it. Because, Miss Brenda, we have talked, the world knows the truth. And I hope everybody is watching the events that are taking place. For you Ugandans, the world has spoken. You have a responsibility at hand. You will get up and be responsible for your God-given mother country. Everybody, they fight for what they have. They work so hard. They do whatever they have to do. Okay? So, everybody has an interest. For you Ugandans, where are your interests? That is the question. So, we can shout, so long as Museveni and Kutesa and their families, they give what they give and they get what they can get, and they are happy with the way things are. Unless we do what we are supposed to do, we will scream. The anti-budget to them, it is a matter of fact to make sure that you don't have anything. You cannot have anything. The previous caller explained it well. You have seen people in the State House kneeling down to beg for some money. This divide and rule. We have army commanders as the culture leaders. Agriculture is militarized. Then the hospitals, they will come very soon. So, yes, what happens right now, it depends on what we do as Ugandans, Miss Brenda.
Yeah, and when you think about the story that was just shared on Sam Kutesa's son and all the money that was just flooded in for the family to go and to celebrate in Spain, other members of parliament has to be looking at that and reading that and saying, how can this be? I mean, because you see an unbalanced shift in the way things are playing out in Uganda. You may not be affected today, but you will be affected by the way that things are going. As far as the way that I see the taxes that have just happened to the Ugandan people, in any economy where you have a true democracy, a tax system works, and it works to benefit the country and the people as a whole.
Miss Brenda, we have a call.
Yes. Okay, let me go ahead and take this call, and then I'll finish the comment I was going to make. Hey, caller, you there? Go ahead and introduce yourself and come on in.
Yeah, Brenda, this is Mobile Musoke.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine. And, I would be happier if we were not talking about a depressing situation in Uganda.
Yes.
But I have just about 2 or 3 points. The first comment is about the Kutesa's election at the UN General Assembly. We are, of course, very disappointed that he was elected, or I should use the word selected rather than elected. The UN, that was because of the UN structure and the function of its institutions, which determine how specific officials are selected. For example, there must be regional balance considerations for the offices, whether of the Secretary General or the UN General Assembly. They have to come from specific regions, rotating from one region to another. So in a way, Tessa was selected by the African Union, and having been selected by the African Union, it was almost a foregone conclusion that he would go through because he wasn't opposed. So the UN Security Council is a little bit different because the unanimity in the General Assembly with which Kutesa was selected, you can use the word elected if you want, but I'm not going to use it, does not translate into his popularity. The reason is that diplomacy being what it is, U.S. could not vote against Kutesa because a negative vote would not have stopped Kutesa from being elected anyway. So the General Assembly is not like the UN Security Council where a veto can kill any resolution or any election of anybody. However, in spite of of Kutesa's victory, the NRM regime is speeding up towards a political black hole, self-destruction, in my opinion. And I think we should help them to speed up their, speeding up towards that black hole. What I can say right now, from what I know, and the little I know, is that the regime in Kampala has reached a political threshold of what I always describe as damned if they do it and damned if they don't do it. For example, the history of the USSR and apartheid clearly illustrate this point very well. The KGB one of the most powerful police force in world history, could not prevent the downfall of the Communist Party and the disintegration of the Soviet Union. And the third force, I don't know whether people remember what a third force means. The third force was a secret police in South Africa. And the police brutality in South Africa could not prevent the extinction of the apartheid regime. So you can see that in some sense, bad regimes have a political destiny already made up for them, and it's our duty to make sure that we speed up this process. you've talked about the economy and the budget. The economy of Uganda and the budget, which has just been passed, are evidence of the downward spiral of the NRM regime. The budget is not based on rational reasoning and credible economic theories. So we can analyze and discuss it, and we are not going to find merit within that kind of budget because it's not a rational budget. After all, it is formulated in a secret, and it is only unveiled to the people by the Minister of Finance on a particular day without any discussion of the people. So it doesn't mean much really. The only question is whether it can improve the conditions of the people, and I think the judgment is clear that it will not. So it's part and parcel of the laws of history, which I believe the laws of history, as I've pointed out before, they are as effective and real as the laws of chemistry and physics. Social change cannot be prevented because it is inevitable. It has to take place. Those who understand the Soviet history, the South African history, and the United States history will agree with me, even if we may disagree on details. But in general, I think it is, you can't prevent social change. The only thing I can say right now is that the Truth Commission is coming. It has to come. It has to, and all the deaths you've talked about will be investigated. For example, in South Africa, Steve Biko died at a very young age, but he did not die in vain. In Uganda, John Bosco Nsubuga, who was killed about 2 weeks ago, will not die in vain. And the other young man you talked about will not die in vain. What is amazing to me is the degree and level of intoxication with the power which drives the dictators like Museveni and others. Of course, because Museveni is not the only dictator in the world. For example, Gaddafi is gone, Hussein is gone, Castro is soon going, for sure. And so I'm not giving you these facts to depress you, but to at the same time to make you aware that social change is inevitable. We will overcome, as Martin Luther King used to say. We shall overcome. In the end, whether or not Kutesa is elected, we shall overcome this, and the NRM regime is going to go. Because we are determined to make sure that it goes, and we are determined that the Truth Commission will come and will review everything that they are doing under darkness. So much as your discussion is very enlightening and very good, but the real news behind it is very depressing. Nevertheless, we cannot give up at this point, and in fact, we should, gain strength from the realization that change is inevitable, and those deaths which have taken place will not be in vain. So, continue the good discussion, and I'll stop there and allow other people to participate in the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor, and so much for being a part of the program this morning. Your calls, too, are always welcome. Zoe, go ahead and comment, if you will, on what the professor had to share there.
Yeah, I just want to thank Professor Mugulu.
Yes.
He brings sanity into the discussion.
Yes, he does.
And of course, we know that that what he's saying about Kutesa is true, and the UN systems. But the Kutesa situation, you also know that Kutesa and Uganda regime bribed another candidate from another African country to withdraw. And so the regime used the same bribery method to ensure that Kutesa was the only candidate. And that is all they know. But the truth is, as the professor said, depressing as it might be, we are excited because now Uganda, whether they like it or not, all this dirt, as I said earlier, is going to come from like under the algae, from underneath the sea. And it will just rise to the top with all the stink, and people will smell it. And there's no way they can run away from it because the Truth Commission eventually will be set in the new Uganda, and it will be established to allow the truth to be brought out, and the truth will always set us free. And me, I just, with this budget issue, I'm looking at, during those of you who were alive when Idi Amin was in power, I remember what we didn't have was actually the availability of essential commodities. There was no salt, there was no sugar on the common market. You could only buy them from special places. I remember for my for the principal and my medical superintendent, people in Butabika Hospital, I used to go to my uncle and beg him to buy some bags of sugar and salt from the army shop and give it, and he would bring them and I would give it to these people because they were sold at very, very low cost. And that is how they survived. But for Kutesa and the Uganda government today, the sugar, the salt, the kerosene, everything is there. And Museveni will say, my government is not like the Idi Amin government where you didn't have these things available. But the truth of the matter is the things are there, but people are looking at them like a dog looks at cigarettes because it can't eat it. And so this is exactly, it's worse. It's better not to have the things, and then you have the money and you are struggling and saying, this is the problem. But when the things are there, and that right to have them has deliberately been taken away from you by somebody whom you have entrusted to lead your country, and him and his relatives as a family can get it. But you, the ordinary people to whom power belongs, you cannot access it. There's nothing which is disgraceful and dehumanizing like that. For people to use pieces of wood or to use grass to light their houses because they cannot afford to buy kerosene. And if you remember, the other week I read in the papers, a woman and her children were torched. They all died in the house because I think she left her little Taduma burning. This woman had 3 beautiful lives, including hers. These children were the future. One of them could have become a president of Uganda. But because life is so hard, the poor woman goes every morning, like Dorothy is saying, you walk, go and sell your 1 bunch of banana or go and sell your 1 basket of beans, and you have nothing to buy with it because the money is so little. And then you come, you have to feed these children, so exhausted. And what happened? The house burned, and the neighbors came and found nothing but child bodies. And so this is the story that Ugandans can tell after 30 years of Museveni rule. That's the kind of legacy Museveni has, running, hopping and jumping around, going to launch a whole president leaving. Imagine President Obama going all the way to a state just to go and launch a tap water. That can be done by the mayors or even the smaller mayors of the smaller cities. You don't have to have a whole president burn gas. There's no money, and they are crying out and taxing the poor people, and he's spending all this money to fly with all these people, and then spend money to send all the police to Mukono. And you see how much money and at what cost? Because these people don't understand what you call cost-benefit analysis of anything. Because he's going just to launch that tap water, and he's taking all the money and resources and everything to take a huge entourage, because not many people are going to come and listen to him. So they are going to ferry buses and buses of people to go to Mukono to pretend that really there were so many people. The people were excited. They came out to listen to the president when nothing happened. And so this is how our money is spent. The people have to wake up, ask questions. I'm just excited. The army is beginning to realize, and they are defecting. I'm happy that cultural leaders, it's no longer the Kabaka fight being fought alone. It's the singer of Rwenjururu. It's also the king of Toro. It's the king of Busoga. There is now a fight everywhere, and it is time those cultural leaders don't see it as a Kabaka's problem, or the problem of the king of Busoga, or the king of Japadola. It is Museveni is going everywhere, and he will dismantle all your kingdoms. While he's giving you 5 million with this hand, he's putting a lot of cockroaches, worms, snakes, everything to make your life very unhappy, so that you eat his 5 million, which he's giving you monthly, while you are cracking your teeth and you are tortured, because those people, the subjects, are disorganizing you left and right, and you're having sleepless nights. Are you surprised that these kings are dying, like the one in Usoga, who just, because people are so frustrated. And that is what Museveni enjoys. But his time is coming. We are going to have a truth and reconciliation team. He can use his terror like they used it in apartheid. Didn't apartheid fall? He can use his terror like it was used against the civil rights in America. Didn't civil rights people succeed? And were they not the heroes and winners? He can use it like Stalin and the KGB used it in Russia. Didn't those people fall? He can use it like Gaddafi used it in Libya. Didn't he fall? He can use it like Saddam used it against his people in Iraq. Didn't he fall? The Ugandan people are the winners at the end.
Yes, most definitely. Ladies, we're going to kind of go into our 5-minute wrap-up session here, because we are getting to the close of the program, and we need to be courteous of our followers. So, Dorothy, go ahead and just give us some of your closing comments here for the last 5 minutes, for your 5 minutes of the program. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Ms. Brenda, Honorable Zoe, our engineer, the listeners, whenever you are. I would like to thank Professor Mbiri so much for those points and the lesson. We are learning a lot, because everything he mentioned is really true.
Yeah.
And we need to consider, who do we go to? And that's right. We need to pay attention very much so what is happening back home. As I said, that it depends on what we do. That can also determine how many months or years a man can be in a position, whoever they might be, whenever. So, social change is inevitable. Professor's words, and they are true. So, for me, I'm crying to the children of Uganda. Miss Brenda, we cannot forget to thank those who have had the calls, those who have seen the sun of the day, and they said enough is enough. They can go back, sit a little bit, then correct, and redo. Nobody is perfect. What they meant to do in the beginning, but they were sidetracked, confused. But now they can come home and fight for true Uganda. I cannot tire to forget, to thank them. And I hope that so many others are watching and they will see the sun to know what matters, where is the truth. Now, when we talk about those people we have lost, Honorable Zoe, I want you to know, and Miss Brenda, of course, I'm not from Toro. I was very young when the king of Toro died. And I used to hear the elders speaking the way he died, very mysterious. As a matter of fact, that man was poisoned. Yeah. Now, if you hear somebody so agitated calling the whole king a boy, he thought he would take away somebody's life, and this younger boy would grow up to be manipulated. Blood is blood. What belongs to you is yours. Nobody can take it away. Mm-hmm. Now, King Oyo is standing up to be true to what he was born for and what he is. What he is demanding is his and his subjects, and he has a right to speak up. So, there you see an old man so agitated because he had planted his seeds and he was sure of what he was going to harvest. But now he's starting to get disappointed. I'm sorry to go back there, but I need to say it. Yes. That king was so nice to be killed just like that, like so many others. Professor Mbiru did speak about the lives we have lost in the past 2 weeks. Not to forget the others gone before. Captain Lutwama and others. The people who are being slaughtered in Luwere right now, as we talk in these past 3 days, 10 people are gone. When you see the opposition in Mukono and this man is running like a headless chicken, you know. But the children of Uganda, the people of Mukono and Ruwero, you stood up, now you are paying the price. But please don't stop. Don't be discouraged. Honorable Zoe said it well. At the end of the day, we, the people, the children of Uganda, who have been abused, mistreated, we will win because we stand for justice. There are some people out there who are laughing that even though Muzei Museveni dies, his legacy will remain. My dear beloved, there are legacies. Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, their legacies stood because they stood for the people, the dignity of a human person. It didn't matter what color, what ethnic groups they were. That's why the legacies stood to be. There is no legacy of killing. Using people, call them toilet paper and condoms, and you kill them at the end of the day. I repeat this. Mayombo did everything. If it means to wash Museveni's feet with his tongue, that boy could do it. Where is he? How could you go to bring poison that would be used to kill you one day? So for those of Kamswanga, Sabaluli, Sabanyala, and those of you Army General Commanders, Institute to be cultural leaders, please watch your steps. And Mr. 7, as you are planting traps all over your garden to catch squirrels, you just make sure, as you plant hundreds and millions of them, you should remember where every single one of them are. Thank you so much, Miss Brenda, Honorable Bakoko, our listeners. We love you so much.
Amen and amen. Zoe, let's go to you and give you your 5 minutes to wrap up.
Yeah, thank you, Miss Dorothy. You finished it very well. And Well, in my language, they say that the leopard's son will always be a leopard. And so King Oyo has the blood of Kaboyo, and so he is going to be his father's son. And if Museveni thought that he could own him and control him like he controls everybody's lives, I think he has something else coming for him. Because this is a young man who is growing up in a different age. And he's not him and the Kabaka. These are people who are living in a different age because they understand social media, they understand the internet, they understand. They are not just those people who were kings and just there and they did not understand how the world around them actually performs. And so for me, I think Museveni has challenges. He is really scared. He thinks that putting all these military people to be in charge of the cultural leaders, he can put military people in NADs everywhere to spy for him. He can militarize the entire civil service. He can militarize the entire political service and think that he's setting up the ground for himself, but eventually he will drop in his own hole. You know, we have a saying too, you know, you put this, have you seen people swinging? For us, you tie the swing on the branches of trees and you are swinging. People are saying, don't swing. You keep swinging and they say, don't swing. Kele, kele. We call it kele, kele, and we are swinging and say, kele, 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 boo. Kele, 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 boo. Before you know it, the branch breaks. And when that branch breaks, the kele, 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 boo is when you are up there and you come down with the branch and you have broken your back and you have cracked your skull, and it is the same rope and swing which you tied to swing you so high, and you thought you were the best swinger, and you end up those swings and all those traps you put. In my language, they say they have cabris. A cabri is actually a tombstone. They have tombstones, and so if you step on it, you can be trapped. If you swing too high, the kelekele can throw you down and break your back. So for Ugandans, there's a new Uganda. We have a new Uganda coming where we are not going to have power centralized in the presidency. We have a new Uganda where we are going to have a truth commission set, which is going to investigate all these things. Let them swing in their excesses. All those monies will come back to Uganda and they will be invested in Uganda. And so I know, because I have had wonderful meetings, as we said, in the last few months, and those meetings give me hope, and I have faith, and I know that we are soon going to be in the new Uganda. I thank Professor Mbiru. I thank Professor Ami. I thank all our brothers who are with us, walking side by side. But you girls, Brenda and Dorothy, you are my hero, because I know that when women take leadership, we do it. So I thank you, listeners, and I hope we will be interacting soon.
Yes, most definitely.
Happy Father's Day.
Yes. I have 2 points I'm going to make here before we close out the show and get ready for the next show that's coming here on Voice Uganda Radio. You know, Professor talked about legacies. Dorothy hit on it a little bit, and so did Zoe. You have to be careful what the legacy is that you're going to leave. We will make him a legacy in Uganda, in the new Uganda. His legacy will be remember and let this not happen again. And we will, in that hall of legacies, we will have the names of those who died over the 30 years of his regime. We will have the names of the families who trusted in him and believed in him for making their lives better from promises he made. We will make sure that they're known. The Selena Abendas and all of those who have died because they spoke out for what was true, what was right, and what was just for the Ugandan people. There will be a legacy, but the legacy will be that we remember so that it does not ever happen again. It's what they did in the Holocaust. the Nazi Germany, if you go there and you visit, it is a memorial as to why we must never be silent in our voices again, why we must never sit aside and allow these things to happen. I think his legacy will prove to the Ugandan people and to the world that he was probably one of the most ruthless rulers that Uganda has ever seen. We don't even know how far the dirt goes back until, like Professor said, that Truth Committee comes in and exposes what has happened. I'm telling you, in the military, in the police force, and wherever you may be, even in parliament, government, wherever you may be, flee from this government as fast as you can. Flee for the reasons that you don't have to answer to anybody, so that you start to make peace with your God, so that you don't fall down with this regime when it falls down, so that the blood is not on your hands, but we put the blood on the hands of where it belongs. We can no longer allow the Ugandan people to fall at the hands of this man who everyone is doing his dirty work until they are no longer needed. It's just like Dorothy just said. He's laying all these all of these mines in his yard, but he better be careful where he's placing them, lest he steps on one of them himself. The professor said that this regime is heading quickly towards a black hole, and let's help them get there. I second that emotion, that we need to help them get past where they're at and out of office as soon as possible. When you have people in the UN like Sam Kutesa who can spend probably millions of US dollars on what just happened with his son there in Spain for this huge celebration, when the citizens of Uganda cannot even afford to take care of themselves because of the new taxes that are coming up. Something is very, very wrong with that picture. And we have to make sure that the beneficiaries of what Uganda brings to the table in trade, in jobs, in marketability, in government is the beneficiary of all the people of Uganda, not just some of the people in Uganda. When we say vision, the new Uganda, this is what we're talking about, my fellow Ugandans, especially those of you in the diaspora. You need to start thinking of Uganda as the new Uganda. Visualize it the way you want to see it. Visualize it the way you want it to be. And that is the way you move forward in your heart, in your minds, with soul and with strength that will help you to get on board with the freedom movement and move forward in that direction. In America, we said, I have a dream. That was a dream that Dr. King put out there for us. We did not know what that dream would give us, but we knew that we had to have the dream and we had to follow suit. Some of us created that dream within ourselves from listening to him, but that was our focus forward. The new dream, how we dreamed that America could be. And in the hearts and minds of all the American people, we saw that differently. But what it did is it gave us all a direction in which we pointed our compass, and that's the direction we headed. And this is what the Ugandan people need to be. When I look at pictures of Uganda in the 60s, I say, wow. I mean, you look at the roads, you look at the happiness of people, you look at the hospitals, you look at infrastructure, you look at a country that was thriving and on the cusp of great and wonderful things, a country that set the example for how the rest of Africa should live and how they should govern and how they should go. When we look at the new Uganda, you've got to look back into your history the way we did here in the United States of America. Because looking back in our history is what brought us forward to where we are today. Ours was not as rosy as that was painted in Uganda. Uganda was a beautiful place. It was a wonderful place. It was a place where people could grow and become farmers and send their kids to great schools, and people could take care of their families. There was enough enough growth for harvesting, and enough to also get monies in which the families could live and thrive off of. The president says the reason Ugandans don't have anything is because they don't understand the harvesting. This Uganda that the Ugandans are living in, they cannot harvest anything. There is no way they can harvest. Everything that they grow is to feed the family and somehow bring a little money into the household that can pay for medical, schooling, or anything else that the family needs. This is not a Uganda where people can grow what they grow and harvest it and keep it so that they can continue to feed themselves. Because, Mr. President, there are other things that the Ugandan people need. And the little monies that they can make, now you have gone in and thrown a tax on that. that will continue to keep the Ugandan people where they're at. I speak like Dorothy did and Madam Zoe Bakoko when I say the people need to live. They're not beggars. The Ugandan people are not beggars. And the new Ugandan, no one will beg for anything, not in a medical perspective, not for education or anything. Zoe said it here very clearly. The president has, in the budget, has said, look what he's given the teachers. He's not given the teachers anything. He owed the teachers that a year or two ago. He's only given them what he should have given them 2 years ago. She also stated what he gives with the right hand, he takes back with the left hand. Uganda can no longer be governed like that. In a new Uganda, we understand and we know the power of that chair has to be taken away. Zoe said it plainly and clearly. Why is he going off with an entourage in a little district because of something very, very minute that a mayor or someone could handle? We have got to take the power away from the chair and give it back to the people of Uganda. My fellow Ugandans, as I close and we get ready for our next program coming up, let me say this. See yourselves in the new Uganda. How do you want it to be governed? How do you want it to be ruled? How do you want it to move forward? And see yourselves being a part of that. I'm ready to move and leave my beloved America to live with the Ugandan people in a new Uganda that will work on behalf of the Ugandan people. And I encourage all of you, get your affairs in order, because the day will come when we will all march back in Uganda hand in hand, and we will take back that country for the Ugandan people. We will give it back to the people the way it belongs. I love you all. I thank you so much for being a part of our program. Thank you so much for waking up with us each and every Sunday here on Freedom at Hand, because this is what this program is all about. Freedom at hand for those of the Ugandan people. As we get ready to transition into our next program, I want to thank all of our fathers again and wish them a happy, happy Father's Day, not only from me, but from the Honorable Zoe Bakoko and Madam Dorothy. As we say, we are as strong as the men that we stand behind. Rise up, our fellow men, on this Father's Day and take your place as we move forward into a new Uganda. God bless you, and thank you so much for being a part of Freedom at Hand here on Voice of Uganda Radio on this Father's Day Sunday.
Fellow citizens, we call upon you to practice resistance and protest against Museveni. We call upon you to oppose strongly the Museveni government, which is responsible for the downfall of Uganda. It is important to know that Museveni is afraid of the millions of people who are living for that day, for the light of day when Uganda will be liberated from his dictatorial regime. Fellow citizens, it's been 24 years of dictatorship. We should all know that at present our drive for freedom has already grown so strong that Museveni has already begun to change his tactics. We call upon people to participate, to organize silent stand-ins for a free Uganda. We call upon people to demonstrate that we're tired of him. We call upon governments in the United States of America and abroad, people in responsible positions, politicians, only to act in the service of peace, justice, and freedom for Uganda. We call upon people to use all legal and imaginative means and methods in order to ensure peace, justice, and freedom for Uganda. We call upon people from the north and south, from the east and west, and yes, from the central province of Uganda to be loyal to one another. We must preserve our loyalty to human dignity. We call upon people once again not to wait until it is too late to begin thinking about a free Uganda. We call for a new attitude. Arise, fellow citizens, arise. Let us fight for a free Uganda. Museveni must go.